Today, we're joined by Mark Evans, a fractional CMO and strategic marketing advisor who helps SaaS founders and CEOs use marketing to accelerate growth. With a background as a technology reporter, startup co-founder, author, podcaster, and a marketing leader at multiple VC-backed companies. So once again, thanks for joining us, Mark.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation. I'm excited to talk about all things SaaS and all things marketing.
Yeah, so your experience and expertise is a lot more about oriented in SaaS, and you're also a book writer. And so I would like to talk a little bit about your book and how you decided to start writing one and how the things are going up to now.
Well, to be honest with you, books are not something that you do for money, because it's really hard to not only write a book, but to sell a book. So you do it for other reasons. For me, it was about thought leadership. It was about using it as a marketing asset for my business and trying to differentiate myself from all the other marketing consultants out there. As you mentioned, I was originally, my career started as a technology reporter for two of Canada's national newspapers. So I like to write, and writing a book, it's kind of like running a marathon. Like it takes a long time. It's painful at times. But when you finish writing the book, it's really satisfying. So it's one of these things when I look back at my career, I'd say, yeah, I wrote that book, and it was mostly aimed at people who really didn't know much about marketing, but it's a very user-friendly book that makes marketing easy. And I think one of the big challenges with marketing, there's so many options that people get confused. Like, should I do email marketing or content marketing or SEO? And I wanted to simplify it to say, hey, it's all good. Here's some of the different channels you should explore, and this is how they work. So very much a marketing 101 book for early stage entrepreneurs and founders.
So your book is all about the founders and early stages of CEOs and CMOs, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think one of the challenges when you're an early stage entrepreneur or a founder is that marketing can be a bit of a mystery. In SaaS, as you know, a lot of founders are technology, software engineers, and they're not marketers. So there are so many options that they don't know where to start. And my book essentially was saying, listen, in many respects, it starts with a good story. If you can tell a very compelling story about your company and why it matters and how you're different, then you can tell that story in advertising or email marketing or content marketing or, on video. And so I wanted to sort of decipher the marketing world for entrepreneurs and say to them, hey, it's not that complex. There are a few moving parts you need to understand, but at the end of the day, it's really about telling your story to the world and convincing people that you're the best option for them.
Yeah. So if we're dealing about SaaS founders, what are they most driven about? Like because I know that they care about revenue a lot. But do they care about marketing? Do they care about different departments? What do you think?
That's a really interesting question, because I think a lot of SaaS founders are driven by solving a problem. Like, engineering is really about problem solving. And so founders will look at a particular industry or a situation, and they'll say to themselves, there's got to be an answer to that. There's got to be a way that I can use software to solve that problem. So I would say number one motivation for them is, let's solve the problem. Number two would be, I want to build a product, because they're all product builders. So once they build the product, then naturally the next thing is, well, I got to make money selling this thing. And so early on, the founder is usually the top salesperson. They're the person who believes in the product. They have the vision for the product. So it's easy for them to sell, because if you and I are talking about my product, then I'm really excited about it. Eventually, they discover that sales is a very tough game if you haven't got market presence. If no one knows about you and every conversation is new, everything is cold email, cold calling, that makes your story a lot harder to tell because they're not warmed up. And so marketing is a way for them to tell their story on a one-to-many basis as opposed to 101. So eventually, a lot of entrepreneurs come around to the fact that I got to do marketing. Some of them think as marketing is a necessary evil. I don't want to do it. I don't like marketing. I don't understand marketing. But eventually they could get convinced that maybe I should do marketing. And so a lot of them get dragged kicking and screaming into marketing until they realize that it's actually a good thing.
But according to your expertise and experience as well, so when do you think they should start investing in marketing? Do you think in the early stages, or they should take a little bit of time to spend on the product and feedback, or what do you think?
That's a good question. And I would say that marketing needs to start at the very beginning. Now, I don't necessarily mean they have to start advertising or leaning into SEO or writing content. What they need to think about is how do they market their company, their story initially to investors or employees or partners. And that story needs to be developed right from the very beginning. So essentially it breaks down like this. So what do you do? Who do you serve? What's in it for the people that would buy your product, and how are you different? And that story, that fundamental story, can be used when you're hiring or raising money or talking to partners or trying to speak at a conference, or maybe you're doing some early social media. But unless you've got that story down, then it makes it very hard for you to be consistent and tell that story, the same story everywhere. So right from the get-go, you got to start thinking, what is our story? Now, the reality is that story is never written in stone. It's very fluid. So you write the story, then the market changes, your business changes, your customers want something else, and so the story changes. But from the early days, you are starting to tell your story, and that you have to do it right from job one. Like if you and I started a company, if you started a company today, and you wanted to hire me to work for you, you would probably have to tell me a pretty good story for me to quit my job and come work for you, because you just simply can't say, hey, I have a company, you should work for me. It won't work. So I'm going to say, like, why did you start this company, and who are you trying to sell to, and how do you plan to make money? So that's storytelling, and that is marketing. Ultimately, we don't think about it as marketing, but that is marketing. So yeah, from the very beginning, you're doing marketing.
Well, how should a SaaS founder think about SEO when they are in a crowded category with lots of competitors?
Okay, you may not like this, but I don't think they should think about SEO right away.
No,
I mean,
after one phase, let's say they're in business for a couple of years, but now they understand that how their competitors are getting sales, are getting revenue, but they're left behind. So how do you think they should react, and what's the next stages of this?
So let's step back. Let's take a step back and look at competitive differentiation. How do I stand out from the crowd?
Yeah.
In ultra competitive marketplaces. So number one is your story. So your value proposition or your brand narrative. So to basically saying to the world, this is what we do and this is why you're different. So that's some way you can wave the flag and get somebody to pay attention to you. And then you start getting a little more technical in the sense that, okay, our ideal customers are going to be looking for using search or using AEO for specific questions or specific needs or specific things that they want to do, specific use cases. And so what are the different levers that I can pull to draw people to my company? So it's not just advertising, but in this case would be, if they're doing search, then how can I get smarter than the competition to make that happen? And one of the things that entrepreneurs think about is marketing is not just, I'm going to use this channel and this channel. It's a marketing mix. So you can combine SEO with content marketing, with video, with an SEO optimized website, and all that can be used to bring people into your world. So SEO, at some point in time, SEO is going to matter to you, because if you want to outflank the competition, and we're all looking for a competitive advantage, then you got to consider something like SEO. But again, they don't know SEO. Essentially, a lot of them don't know content marketing. So they need people like you to help them navigate their way through strategically and tactically.
Yeah. So since you mentioned different types of social media as well and channels, but we have seen this gap into creating content. Sometimes the founders, the CMO, the CFO, COO refuses to create content. It doesn't look that way for them. It doesn't suit them. But if we go back and check how the best companies are performing, we can see that they're also a part of the social media. So should they be a part of as well, or no? It's childish for them.
If your CEO or CMO refuses to create content, then they're making a massive strategic mistake. Because often, especially early stage, is that credibility is the most important thing that a company can offer to prospects. And truth be told is that people buy from people. So if I see a high profile CEO and he or she has smart things to say and clearly knows their market inside out, and I see them as a trusted resource, then I'm going to have an affinity for that company. I'm going to say, hey, I like that person. I like what they have to say, and I'm going to check them out. But if you're simply relying on corporate communications to tell your story, then you're at a competitive disadvantage. So you think of all the CEOs that are not on LinkedIn, that aren't writing content, that aren't commenting, that aren't making connections. It's like, that's where all your buyers are. So it's like there's this great party happening and you're not there. So, I think it's a no-brainer. And I think one of the things that would stop a CEO or a leader from creating content, say, I don't have the time, right? Like, it's just too much work, and I don't see the ROI. But the solution to that is that you sit down with your marketing person for 30 minutes a week, and your marketing person says, okay, what's going on? What kind of conversations have you had with investors? What conferences have you been to? What are customers saying these days? Like, tell me what you're thinking these days. Like, tell me everything that's going on that you think is important, or things that you want to say publicly. And then it's just an interview. And then you can pull tons of great content from that conversation. And these days it's even easier because you can use AI and say, identify 5 really great ideas for LinkedIn posts, or identify 2 really great blog posts. And then the marketer can use the words from the CEO and write great content. Then go back to the CEO and say, hey, what do you think of this? But it's their words. So in many respects, it's very authentic. It's very real. So there's nothing should stop a CEO from creating content.
Yeah, that actually makes sense. And also the thing that you said, people buy from people, that's actually the truth. Because the moment that they see you more, the chances are higher to actually buy. But we're an AI world. So do you think AI content will make original SaaS content more valuable or not?
I guess I'm not an SEO expert.
Yeah. From AI usage and how you think AI is evolving and changing people's life, and even some of them are getting fired because of that. So
yeah, so I mean, I think it's early days for AEO. I think people are still trying to figure out how it works and what they should or shouldn't do. I mean, if you look at all the companies that are trying to create these AEO graders or trying to figure out how you rank in terms of AEO, no one's really cracked on that yet. I mean, it's so early stage. It's like SEO was like 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And so I think there's a lot of confusion about what people should do, what works and what doesn't. On a very basic level, I think that content marketing still has a lot of power in terms of SEO. And I still think a lot of it resonates when it comes to AEO as well. So it may be different types of content, like it may be Q&As, or it may be content that's not necessarily SEO friendly, but it's AEO friendly. And that's where I think the magic happens. But fundamentally, I still think that you still have to feed the engine. Yeah. But you know better than I. I mean, obviously you're looking at this world. I mean, what if I was a SaaS CEO or a SaaS CMO? What should I do if I want to make AEO work for me?
Yeah, definitely the way you said it, it's an early stage, and it's like going to the cave full of water. So you try to find something on the early stages, then you think that's the bulletproof, but you haven't gone, and nobody haven't gone till the end. Nobody knows how deep it is. But actually, there are a lot of case studies that can prove right and wrong at this stage. But just ignoring isn't the case. So you should start investing as soon as possible. So one of the things is that, yeah, people buy from people, then when you set it, and if that content serves those specific people that are looking to buy, that definitely it will perform very well on LMS and search engines as well.
Yeah, the thing I think about is that a lot of people are using ChatGPT or Claude as essentially a default search engine right now. I mean, the number of people who are doing sophisticated prompting is very, very small. They're going to these LLMs and they're saying, well, what's the best accounting software for small business? Using that. And the question is that if you are an accounting software company, how do you make sure that you're there when they ask the question? How do you make sure that your company is among the companies that are listed? Now, I think that's the big challenge for a lot of CMOs these days, is that there's not necessarily like a magical success formula right now. There's a lot of experimentation. There's a lot of guessing, a lot of educated guessing. There's probably some smart people who have figured it out. But I would say from a marketing perspective, it's like, I don't know what works right now. Like, I don't know exactly if I do this that I'm going to actually see results. And I think there's huge opportunity for SEO and AEO people. If they can figure it out, if they can develop some expertise, then I think there's so much runway to help marketers better leverage the LLMs.
You know, what is interesting, the way we see it, is that people that are going from search engines to, let's say, ChatGPT and even Grok and Claude and Gemini and the others, is that they think that the information in LMS are much more credible. But the truth is, sometimes it can hallucinate, it can give you old data, and it's all about somebody else doing SEO better than the competitors. So actually, you're not seeing something that is way better. It's the same that you go in the search engines. You're seeing something on top because somebody invested a lot of SEO in it. And that's why LMS are smart, and they're picking information from different sources. And if you do reverse engineering that, you're very close to find something that you can use for the next person or the next client or the next SaaS founder that can outperform their competitors as well. So if the user search them in ChatGPT and says, okay, what is this and that, it's going to show up. And they're 100% sure and credible that this is true. But actually not in the old cases, if you're looking for a doctor or a lawyer, because we've seen lawyers as well. Actually, so it's still the same. If they're doing very well on SEO, they're investing in off-page SEO like backlinks, like citation. They do have lists of directories and so on. Their NAP is consistent. Chances increase. I'm not going to say it's 100% sure, but in 2, 3, 4 weeks, the chances increase very high, and you just start showing up on LMS as well.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, from what I've read is that the fundamentals of SEO and AEO are the same. I mean, essentially, if you have a strong presence, you have a strategy, you know exactly how you want to play it technically, there's a lot of migration that happens. It is interesting that you mentioned that people trust the LLMs, even though they do hallucinate. I think that people don't take hallucination into account. They just assume that everything that ChatGPT or Claude gives them is accurate.
Yeah.
There's no skepticism when it comes to that kind of information. And the other thing that I battle, especially as a consultant, is that there's a lot of bias towards telling them what you want to hear. So if I'm the CEO of a SaaS company and I say, you know, I want to create a strategic plan that will help me outflank my 3 biggest competitors, X, Y, and Z. Give me that plan that will help me double my sales in a year. So what the LLMs will do is they'll give you an answer that you want to hear.
Yeah.
And so it'll say, Mark, you are the smartest CEO out there. This is an amazing plan. I think that you are going to not only double your sales, you're going to triple your sales. And so I feel pretty good using AI for that kind of thing. But the truth of the matter is they're just telling me it's a bias towards me, right? I'm not getting that perspective. I'm not getting the context. I'm not getting the expertise. And so I think people have to be very careful about how much they lean into AI.
Yeah, definitely. Especially to those free versions, let's say of ChatGPT or even the others. And also when you haven't add the custom words, when you say explicitly that don't sugarcoat my questions, don't say yes if you have proof that you don't agree, and so on, because they can feel it which way you're going, and they will approve. As you said, they will approve your as they say, if you have doubt, there's no doubt. So
Yeah.
they're going to do that for you. So you're going to feel more comfortable and more okay. But at the end of the day, that's not how you're going to help you succeed.
Well, so I'll tell you a funny story when it comes to AI. So I play a little hockey. I'm based in Canada, so I play hockey. And I asked it a question about a hockey technique or something that you do on the ice. And it gave me the answer, and it was the wrong answer. Like, it was totally wrong. As a longtime hockey player, it's like, that's not true. And so I said to ChatGPT, this doesn't look right. That's not the way it is. And then it says, oh, Mark, you're right. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Like, it's too late. You already answered the question, right? So, I mean, that's the world that we live in, is that you can't entirely trust AI, because it kind of sometimes has a mind of its own, right? Or unless you tell it exactly what you want, to your point about customizing it, the answers can be mostly hit, but sometimes they miss.
Yeah, and sometimes they are very confident about being wrong. They just try to push it. Another thing that I've seen in many people, they just keep asking like it's their friend. They ask about everything. And that's the moment that LMS is not trained for that. It doesn't have a lot of information about you and your industry and your specialization and so on. So you shouldn't ask about anything. You should ask only about few specific things every day. So it's going to be trained, get a lot of information, store some information, then you can use to help you predict and make better opinions and have better choices as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's still early days. I mean, we're less than 3 years in from the launch of ChatGPT, and everybody thinks that we're in the midst of a massive revolution, but we're just scratching the surface right now. And I think that's a lot of people got to remember that.
Yeah, I think, definitely it's on the early stages, but it's about the competitive industry, and also competitors are very high, very rich, and very powerful. And if we wait for an iPhone, it takes 1 year for the next version. But actually, we can see a new version of LMS every week or every month sometimes. That's why it's getting very fast, very hard. But yeah, it's still intrigued. But getting back to the basics of SaaS and growth. So what personal challenges do founders usually face when growing a company?
These days, building a product is easy, especially with vibe coding. And one of the biggest challenges they face, I think, is what I call the competitive tsunami, is that the barriers to entry have been pretty much eliminated. If I wanted to start an accounting software company, I can probably spend a week with my team or individually, and I can have accounting software. And I think it makes life very challenging for founders, because there's not only like 50 choices, there's like 200, 300, 400 choices. So how do you stand out from the crowd? How do you attract those customers? Like when you're competing against everybody else, and then how do you keep them? Because once you've got a customer, and then the next week a shiny new AI-powered, super automated accounting software comes out, people are fickle. They're not terribly loyal, and so there's the dangers of churn. So I think the biggest challenge for entrepreneurs these days is building a product that is a good product, but is differentiated, and then being very focused on telling your story to specific types of customers in specific places. So you have to be very disciplined these days, because the world of I'm just going to tell my story everywhere doesn't work anymore. And then the other challenge is it's so hard to attract a customer these days that a lot of entrepreneurs forget that one of the biggest jobs they have is to keep those customers, is to engage and educate them and continually make them feel like they've made the right choice. Because with competitive options, it's easy for them to leave. They're getting like hit on all the time. So it's tough, but as you say, it comes down to the fundamentals, right?
Yeah. But since you mentioned users and how hard it is for them to convert, I just read yesterday from Neil Patel, who said that Generation Z or Z, actually they need to see you 11 times before they make a purchase or they make a conversion or anything. When it used to be 3 or 4 times, if they've seen you on YouTube, they've seen you on TikTok, they've seen you on Instagram, and then checked on website, they will ready to buy. But actually this is getting harder, and they need to see at least 11 times before they make a click to buy. So how this will affect next few years, because this generation is going to get older, they're going to get new position like CMO, like CEOs, and so on.
It's a really interesting question because that multi-touch world has existed for a long time. I think Gartner at one point in time said that it takes 7 touches before somebody converts, before they even visit your website or talk to a salesperson. So on one side, you've got companies that recognize that they have to be everywhere all the time. So it's a 24/7 multi-channel world, which is exhausting. Can you imagine how much resources you need to develop that much content so that you can touch a prospect 11 times before they even talk to you or convert? So obviously you're going to have to automate all that information. But on the other side, the thing that I think about is prospect fatigue. So if I'm pounding away on social media and email and LinkedIn DMs and advertising, at some point in time, your story's going to start to get boring. And that's a problem right now. I'll give you a great example. I was building an app, and I wanted to see if I could leverage Salesforce as part of the app's platform. So I downloaded a free account from Salesforce. I was called 10 minutes after I downloaded that app, and then I got at least 10 calls over the next 2 weeks, and several emails. So they decide, it's what I call brute force marketing. That's what a lot of companies think they need to do these days, is they pound at you so long that you give up. You say, okay, I'll talk to you. And I think that's a terrible way to do marketing. So I don't know the answer. And I think that's one of your biggest challenges as a software company is that do you push super hard, or do you try to be more strategic and it's a balancing act right now. I don't know the answer to that. I really don't. Like it's harder than ever, I think, to be a software entrepreneur.
Yeah, and it's hard to predict as well. But as you said, one of the things that if you say, okay, I'm going to be average, the chances that you're going to left behind are pretty much high, because a lot of companies are investing a lot to stay ahead of the curve. And then you might have the capabilities, you have a lot of investors, but still if they don't see revenue in a couple of months, they're going to get tired and then withdraw. So I still think it's hard to predict, but yeah, investing, it's better than just waiting for, just saying that, okay, I'm going to get bored of this thing and I'm not going to do videos, I'm not going to do content, I'm not going to do this or that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think it's the way the game is played right now, and it's almost like as a marketer, you kind of hold your nose while you're doing it. Like you're thinking, oh my God, this is so hard, and it's so annoying when you're me because I'm bugging people. But maybe you're not. Maybe people just need that brand recognition before they even sort of switch on, saying, hey, I should talk to that company.
Yeah. Okay, outside of work, we did some research for you as well. So outside of work, we saw that you're into travel, hockey, tennis. Do these passion influence how you approach business creatively? Because you're actually in Canada and there's most of the time frozen. So
Exactly. Yeah. It's about 30 degrees right now outside. So this is like in Canada, we get about 2 months of summer, right? I know in Europe that it's just like super hot right now. So that's not
exactly,
my idea of summer.
it's melting.
But I'd say, yeah, I mean, I'd say that like, everybody talks about work-life balance, and it's really hard because when you're in tech, you're on all the time. And the feeling is that if you're not on 24/7, then you're really not competing effectively. But I think that you have to switch off sometimes, and sometimes you have to force yourself to switch off. So if you're playing a sport like hockey or you're traveling, that you're not thinking about work, right? You're just in another world. So I don't know. I believe in work-life balance. I think it's hard to pull off, but it keeps you sane, right? It keeps you mentally healthy. And that's probably the biggest reason why I do it, because otherwise I'd be working all the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. To have the work-life balance. Sometimes it's hard, but you got to do. So since we're approaching to the end, one of the things that I always ask is when we're dealing with clients, sometimes we deal with difficult ones. So how we should know and how we should predict when to fire a bad client?
That is a great question, because I have fired clients in my, and it always feels good when you do it, because
After you do it.
after you do it. Before, it's very stressful because
Yeah.
they're giving you money and you don't want to get rid of them. But I always feel that there's red flags when it comes to those type of, they're difficult to deal with. They're never happy. They consume a lot of resources. It's painful to them. But you have to pull the trigger in terms of getting rid of them, because they suck down your organization. They zap your energy. They take way too much time and effort to keep them on board. And what you're doing when you're dealing with those clients, the bad clients, is that you're not spending enough time trying to get the good clients.
Yeah.
So as soon as you recognize that this is not a good relationship, then you have to cut the cord. And it's always better, I find, as a service provider, to cut the cord first rather than let them fire you. Because when you cut the cord, you're basically saying, "Hey, listen, this is good, but it's just not working for me. I think you'd be better off with somebody else," as opposed to giving them the upper hand, because it maintains your credibility. And it basically says to them, "I'm confident in my business and it's not working for me, and that's okay." As opposed to letting them get angry at the end of the day and saying, "You suck and I'm going to fire you." So I always say, go first and get rid of the bad clients, because I always firmly believe you always get better clients down the road.
Yeah, that actually makes really, really good sense. So, Mark, where people can find you, follow your work, or learn more about you and what you do after this?
Yeah, so you can search for me on LinkedIn. I write a lot of content, so it's pretty easy to search for Mark Evans and find my content. And if you do find me and my content, please connect with me and tell me how you found me via the podcast. My website is marketingspark.co, so marketingspark.co, where you'll learn more about what I do for B2B and SaaS companies. And if I can offer a plug, I recently launched a new Chrome extension that makes it easier and faster to analyze LinkedIn connections. It was a fun project that I did on the side. If you look under the resources section on my website, you'll see Marketing Spark IQ, or you can search for it on the Chrome store. And I'd love for people to try it out and let me know what they think. It's work in progress. It's my first stab at being a software developer. So it's been educational. Let's just say that.
Okay. Yeah, that looks okay. And now actually we're going to use it and let you know on LinkedIn as well.
Okay. All right. That's great.
Okay. So once again, thank you very much for taking time to get on this podcast, Mark. We really enjoyed every word. And I think the audience learned a lot about how CEOs and CMOs and CFOs as well see the world and how they can react and make sure to get the best out of their work balance. So once again, thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was lovely talking to you.